A warning tonight after daycare parking lots become the latest target of thieves.
Some parents in Howard expressing concern about this. Emily Riley in the newsroom after talking to investigators of what parents are now urged to do. Emily.
Cammie, parents say they're worried after hearing about these incidents over the past few days. 2 of the 3 targeted daycares are KinderCare and La Petite in Howard. Deputies say the suspects were seen driving a blue Dodge Durango, which came back as stolen after the plate number was scanned. Bystanders at KinderCare say the suspected thieves targeted unlocked cars in the parking lot.
The only description that we really had at the time of the call was wearing a gray hoodie.
In one of the 3 reports, a purse was found on the side of the highway with valuables missing. A parent who saw the Dodge Durango said they became concerned after seeing the car drive away without anyone dropping off a child. Drop-off and pickup times are the busiest at daycares, and an employee says sometimes parents leave their cars running while going inside. Captain Jody Lemons at the Brown County Sheriff's Office has this advice for parents or anyone who's leaving their car for a short period of time.
Putting your purse out of sight, locking your vehicle, it just takes a little bit of preventative effort to, prevent a very inconvenient and time-consuming, stressful event.
Investigators are working now on gathering additional security footage to find out more about these cases. Bill.
Emily, thank you. Today marks